I want to have the luck that my friend has. I want her beauty, her charm, her favor. I want her life. The juju priest studied her carefully, his eyes never leaving hers.
What is that you seek, child?
He asked, his voice raspy but powerful. I want what she has, Chinonso repeated. I want to be loved, admired. I want people to look at me the way they look at her. I have been good, I have worked hard, but nothing comes my way. Why should she have it all? Ezudo was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded.
I will help you.
My friend, my enemy. In a peaceful Igbo village, nestled between rolling hills and fertile farmland, Ngozi and Chinonso's story began long before jealousy and betrayal tainted their bond. Their tale started with childhood innocence and deep emotional ties that no one could easily sever. Ngozi, the only child of Nze and Oluchi, was a girl blessed with beauty, grace, and wealth. Her father, a prosperous merchant, owned several trading routes, and her mother, Oluchi, was the daughter of a reverend chief. They lived in a large, beautiful house adorned with fine artwork and rich fabrics that seemed to reflect the family status in the village. Despite all the material wealth surrounding her, Ngozi's heart felt empty. Her greatest desire was to have a sibling. She longed for a brother or sister to share her life with, someone who would understand the quiet loneliness that came with being the only child in a home full of adults. But no matter how much she prayed, the family remained incomplete. Her parents, who loved her dearly, couldn't fulfill her longing. Nze, though a successful man, often traveled on business, and Oluchi spent her days managing the household, leaving Ngozi to entertain herself. At the age of 8, during a warm afternoon in the village, Ngozi met Chinonso. Chinonso's family was nothing like Ngozi's. They lived in a modest mud house on the outskirts of the village. Chinonso's father, Ugochukwu, was a hard-working farmer, while her mother, Nneka, took care of their small home and helped with the farm. Their wealth was measured not by gold or riches, but by the closeness of their family and their connection to the land. Chinonso, the eldest of 3 children, had a strong sense of responsibility and always helped her parents. Though their lives were humble, they were full of love and warmth. The first time Ngozi met Chinonso, she was envious of how happy and carefree the younger girl seemed, playing with her siblings and laughing as though life was simple and beautiful. Meanwhile, Ngozi was always left to entertain herself in solitude. She watched Chinonso from a distance, wishing she could be as carefree as she was. One day after school, Ngozi went to play near the river where Chinonso was sitting on a large rock, plaiting palm fronds into a basket. The moment they locked eyes, it was as though the universe had brought them together.
Are you lonely?
Chinonso asked, her voice soft but curious. Ngozi nodded, her eyes filled with sadness.
Yes, I wish I had a sister to talk to play with.
Chinonso smiled and petted the spot next to her.
Then let me be your sister.
From that moment, the bond between the two girls was formed. They spent their days together, visiting each other's homes, laughing, playing, and sharing secrets. Ngozi loved the way Chinonso could make her laugh, and in turn, Chinonso admired Ngozi's warmth and kind heart. Despite their differences in background, they were inseparable. Every evening, Ngozi would go to Chinonso's house to help with chores, bringing food and gifts from her father's store. Nneka and Ugochukwu always welcomed her with open arms, their smiles lighting up their modest home. But despite the warmth of her family, Chinonso couldn't ignore the growing ache inside her heart. As the years passed, the difference in their social status became more apparent. Ngozi's beauty began to bloom, and it was as though everyone in the village couldn't help but admire her. Men from nearby towns visited to see her, and soon Obinna, the son of the chief, came to visit. He was the most eligible bachelor in the village, and everyone knew that whoever won his heart would be set for life. At first, Chinonso didn't think much of it, but as Obinna began to visit Ngozi more frequently, the feeling she had been burying deep inside her for years began to surface. It was no longer just envy over the gift or attention Ngozi received. It was deeper. Chinonso began to resent how effortlessly Ngozi seemed to win the admiration of everyone around her. One evening, when the village had gathered for a festival, Chinonso overheard a conversation between two women. They were talking about Ngozi, praising her beauty and how she had captured the heart of Obinna. One woman even commented,
"She is the luckiest girl in this village. Everything she touches turns to gold."
The word struck Chinonso like a slap in the face. Obinna, who is the man she secretly admired, was in love with her best friend, and Ngozi had never once confided in her about it. There was a sharp pain in Chinonso's chest, a feeling she had never known before. Later that night, Chinonso sat alone by the river bank, her heart twisted with jealousy and frustration. She had always loved Ngozi as a sister, but now for the first time, she realized how much she wanted Obinna's love, how much she wanted the life that Ngozi had. "I will never have the things she has," Chinonso whispered to the moon. "I will never be the lucky one." As the night grew darker, a thought began to form in her mind. If Ngozi could have everything, why couldn't she? Why couldn't Chinonso have some of that luck for herself? The seeds of jealousy were sown that night, and from then on, Chinonso began to change. She became distant from Ngozi, and her jealousy began to poison their once perfect friendship. But Ngozi, oblivious to the growing storm inside her friend, continued to pour all her love and trust into their bond. As the seasons passed, the bond between Ngozi and Chinonso seemed unbreakable. They remained the best of friends, sharing their dreams, their fears, and even their romantic entanglements. However, the growing divide between their social statuses began to take its toll. Ngozi continued to receive the admiration of the entire village. She was beautiful, charming, and adored by all, including Obinna, the wealthy and handsome son of the village chief. He courted her with devotion, showering her with attention, while the villagers constantly praised her beauty and grace. Chinonso, on the other hand, found herself becoming more and more consumed by jealousy. She had always been the humble daughter of a farmer, working hard to help her family make ends meet. Despite her own quiet beauty, she was often overlooked by men, especially Obinna, who seemed oblivious to her existence. Her friend's success, love, and the envy-inducing luck she seemed to possess weighed heavily on her heart. But it wasn't just the attention from men that irked Chinonso, it was Ngozi's effortless success in life. Ngozi never seemed to work hard for anything. Everything came so easily for her, from the affection of men to the admiration of the villagers, and now the prospect of Obinna marrying Ngozi seemed to seal her fate. She would always live in Ngozi's shadow, never the center of attention, never the one who had it all. One evening, after yet another conversation about Ngozi's engagement, Chinonso could no longer contain her frustration. She needed to change her fate. She needed what Ngozi had. It was then that Chinonso remembered the Juju priest, an old man who lived on the outskirts of the village. Ezudo, the Juju priest, was rumored to have powers that could alter the course of a person's life. Some feared him, while others sought him out when they were desperate for a change. Chinonso, at the breaking point of her envy and desperation, decided to seek his help. That night, under the pale moonlight, Chinonso made her way to Ezudo's hut. The air around her felt thick with anticipation, as though the village itself knew what she was about to do. She knocked on the door, and the old man answered with a knowing look in his eyes, as if he had been expecting her. "I have come to ask for your help," Chinonso said, her voice low and filled with both desperation and determination. "I want to have the luck that my friend has. I want her beauty, her charm, her favor. I want her life." The Juju priest studied her carefully, his eyes never leaving hers.
What is that you seek, child?
He asked, his voice raspy but powerful.
"I want what she has," Chinonso repeated. "I want to be loved, admired. I want people to look at me the way they look at her. I have been good, I have worked hard, but nothing comes my way. Why should she have it all?"
Ezudo was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded.
I will help you,
He said,
but you must understand, what you take will come with a price. There is no such thing as stealing another's luck without consequences. But if you are willing, I will give you the power to claim what you desire.
I am willing, Chinonso whispered, almost pleading. The priest then handed her a small worn bag filled with strange powders and herbs, the scent of which filled the air with a strong, pungent aroma. Ezudo gave her his instructions, speaking in a low, steady tone.
You must steal something that has carried your friend's joy and success, the one thing that binds her to the luck she enjoys,
he said.
Steal one of her clothes, preferably one she has worn on a day when her luck was especially evident. Perhaps when she received a gift from her fiancé, or when the villagers celebrated her beauty. Wear that dress and you will take her luck. But be warned, if you wear it for too long, you may lose yourself in the illusion of her life.
Chinonso's heart raced. How will I know which dress? Ezudo smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes.
You will know. You will feel it in your heart.
With the instructions clear in her mind, Chinonso left Ezudo's hut that night, her mind swelling with both excitement and dread. She had never felt so sure of anything in her life. This was her chance to finally have what Ngozi had. The following days passed in a blur for Chinonso. Every moment was consumed with thoughts of the dress she needed to steal, and she began to carefully observe Ngozi's every move. Her friend, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in Chinonso's heart, continued to share her life, her secrets, and even her excitement over her upcoming wedding. But Chinonso saw it differently now. It wasn't long before she noticed the perfect opportunity. Ngozi had received a beautiful embroidered dress from Obinna, and she wore it to a feast in honor of the village harvest celebration. Chinonso, who had accompanied her to the feast, watched as Ngozi danced gracefully under the night sky, everyone admiring her beauty. It was clear to Chinonso that this was the moment. The dress Obinna had gifted her was the key to everything she wanted. That night, Chinonso waited until the village was quiet, the celebrations long finished. She made her way to Ngozi's house, her heart pounding in her chest. As she entered, she found Ngozi asleep. Unaware of the betrayal about to unfold, Chinonso quietly opened the closet and carefully removed the dress Obinna had given to Ngozi. With trembling hands, Chinonso hid the dress under her own cloak, making sure not to disturb Ngozi. She left as silently as she had come, her heart racing with a mix of guilt and anticipation. The next day, she followed the priest's instructions. She performed the rituals in private, burning incense and muttering the words Ezudo had taught her. The air around her seemed to hum with energy as she slipped the dress on, feeling a sudden, overwhelming sense of power. She could feel Ngozi's presence in the fabric, as if the dress itself carried the essence of her luck. The next day, Ngozi began searching frantically for her beloved dress, which she noticed had gone missing. She checked every corner of her house, lifting and moving furniture, hoping it had simply been misplaced. She searched through her wardrobe, drawers, and even the areas where she had last worn it, but it was nowhere to be found. Deep down, she felt a gnawing suspicion, but couldn't bring herself to believe that Chinonso, her closest friend, could have taken it. Desperation started to set in as she realized the dress had vanished without a trace. And for the first time in her life, Chinonso felt truly powerful. As the days passed, Chinonso's life began to change. She caught the attention of men, her beauty now radiating in a way it never had before. The villagers who had always overlooked her began to notice her in new ways. She no longer felt invisible. Gifts, praises, and attention flooded in from every corner. But with each passing day, the joy she once felt began to wane. The dress was both a gift and a curse. Her luck continued to grow, while Ngozi's fortune seemed to vanish. The more Chinonso indulged in the life she had stolen, the more Ngozi seemed to fade. It wasn't just the loss of wealth or admiration. It was as though Ngozi herself had changed. Her once vibrant spirit seemed dimmed, and Obinna's attention began to wane. Ngozi began to grow restless, her life unraveling before her eyes. However, with each compliment, each offer of admiration, Chinonso begins to feel a growing emptiness inside her. The feeling of Ngozi's luck becomes intoxicating, but something is off. It's as though she's wearing someone else's life. It doesn't feel real. Chinonso starts to see herself as the center of attention, but her reflection in the mirror no longer feels familiar. Her own identity starts to fade, replaced by the image of Ngozi, and she struggles to keep track of who she is anymore. Back in Ngozi's world, things begin to unravel. As Chinonso's life flourishes, Ngozi seems to crumble. Her engagement to Obinna is no longer as bright and promising. Though she tries to keep her spirits high, there's a noticeable coldness in her relationship with Obinna. He seems distracted, distant, and more focused on his family's affairs than on her. At first, Ngozi blames it on the pressures of their upcoming wedding, but as time passes, she can't ignore the nagging feeling that something is wrong. She begins to question everything: Obinna's attention, the way her friend treats her, even the gift that once came so freely. One evening, as Ngozi and Chinonso sit together in Ngozi's home, Ngozi tries to talk about her worries, but Chinonso brushes them off, acting distant and detached. Ngozi notices the shift in her friend, how Chinonso has become colder, more confident and less supportive.
Chinonso, what's going on with you? You are not the same,
Ngozi says, her voice trembling slightly.
You have been so different lately. You don't talk to me like you used to. You don't even look at me the same.
Chinonso forces a smile, though it's empty.
I have just been busy, Ngozi. I am not the same little girl I used to be. Things change.
The more Ngozi presses her, the more Chinonso grows defensive. She feels the pressure of keeping the secret of her stolen luck, and it begins to take a toll on her. She becomes paranoid, convinced that Ngozi is catching on. The tension between them grows as Chinonso pushes Ngozi away and becomes more immersed in her new life. Meanwhile, Obinna, once so attentive to Ngozi, begins spending more time with Chinonso. He compliments her beauty, offers her attention, and even takes her aside for private conversations. Ngozi feels the jealousy creeping in, but it's masked by the anxiety she already feels about Obinna's behavior. In Chinonso's mind, the idea of keeping her new life is intoxicating. She doesn't want to give it up. She doesn't want to return to the humble life she had before, to the quiet village girl who was overlooked and ignored. But as the days pass, the guilt grows heavier. She begins to wonder if the price of Ngozi's luck was worth the cost. Every time she feels the surge of power and confidence, a part of her feels as though she is slowly losing herself. She has moments where she catches a glimpse of her true self, the girl who used to laugh freely and share everything with Ngozi, but that person seems far away, almost like a stranger. As Chinonso continues to wear the dress in secret, the effects begin to intensify. Her relationship with Ngozi becomes strained, and she starts to feel distant from everyone she once cared about. Chinonso's inner tumor escalates as she begins to notice subtle changes in her own personality. Her kindness erodes and her jealousy grows deeper. The more she enjoys the stolen fortune, the more she becomes consumed by greed. Ngozi's absence from her life makes Chinonso realize just how far she's fallen from the person she once was. One evening, as Chinonso walks along the river bank, she encounters Ezudo, the juju priest. His eyes pierce through her as though he sees everything she's hiding.
I warned you,
he says in a gravely voice.
Nothing comes without a price. The more you wear the dress, the more you lose yourself. You think you have gained, but you are giving away what's most important.
Chinonso freezes, the weight of his words sinking in.
I'm just doing what I have to do. You told me it would work.
I told you it would work, yes.
Ezudo replies, his voice almost a whisper.
But nothing lasts forever, Chinonso. No stolen luck, and certainly no stolen lives.
As Ezudo walks away, Chinonso feels a cold chill settle in her chest. But she shakes it off. She couldn't let go now. She wouldn't. The tension between Ngozi and Chinonso finally reaches its boiling point when Ngozi confronts Chinonso again, this time with more force. She's had enough of the secrecy, the coldness, and the growing distance between them.
Why are you doing this? Ngozi demands. You've been distanced like you are hiding something. I've been nothing but a friend to you, Chinonso. What happened to us?
Chinonso feels the guilt claw at her, but she refuses to back down.
You've had everything, Ngozi. I wanted something for myself. Something more. You had your luck, your beauty, your man, Obinna. I had nothing.
Ngozi stares at her in shock, the pain in her eyes undeniable. At this point, Ngozi became really confused about what Chinonso was telling her, but couldn't really bring herself to the conclusion. After the tension between Chinonso and Ngozi continued to grow, Ngozi couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong in her life. She watched as her once glamorous world seemed to crumble. Her relationship with Obinna had grown cold, and the admiration she once received from the village had slowly faded. She had tried to ignore it, hoping it was just the stress of wedding planning. But every day the weight of her confusion grew. The affection of the people, the love from Obinna, the sense of being the center of attention, all of it seemed to slip through her fingers like sand.
I don't understand, Ngozi would often mutter to herself. Why is everything changing? Why does everything feel so empty?
Tired and desperate for answers, Ngozi sought solace in a different direction. She had heard of a man of God who had been known to help troubled souls, someone who was said to have the ability to see into the unseen and offer guidance. With no other opinion left, Ngozi went to him, hoping he could provide her with the clarity she so desperately needed. The man of God, a humble elder who had long served the village, received Ngozi with quiet warmth. He listened patiently as she poured out her heart, telling him about the changes in her life, the growing distance from Obinna, and the loss of her once constant good fortune. After she finished, the man of God closed his eyes, and the room fell into a heavy silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was filled with sorrow.
Ngozi,
he said softly,
I have seen your pain, but what you do not understand is that you have been the victim of a betrayal. One thing has caused the very essence of your love to be stolen.
Ngozi felt a jolt in her chest.
Stolen?
She whispered, her voice trembling.
By whom?
The man's eyes opened slowly, and he fixed her with a penetrating gaze.
Your best friend Chinonso, she has taken your luck, your favor, your glory. She has stolen it by using dark means, by wearing your clothes, by performing rituals in secrecy, and in doing so she has taken not just your fortune, but your very lights.
The words hit Ngozi like a thunderclap. She could barely breathe. The man continued, explaining that Chinonso had visited a juju priest who had instructed her to steal Ngozi's clothes and perform rituals to transfer her luck to herself. Ngozi listened in stunned silence, unable to process the full extent of the betrayal.
But why? Why would she do this to me?
Ngozi asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man of God looked at her with deep sympathy.
She was blinded by envy. She wanted what you had, but didn't realize the cost of such actions. The glory she took was never meant for her. But now, the truth is out. You must regain what is rightfully yours.
In that moment, Ngozi was filled with a mix of rage, confusion, and heartbreak. The woman she had trusted most, the sister she had shared everything with, had betrayed her in the most painful way possible. The man of God gave Ngozi a blessing, a prayer of restoration, and instructed her to return to Chinonso to confront her and demand that the stolen glory be returned. But Ngozi knew it wasn't just about confronting her friend. It was about reclaiming her own identity. The process of regaining her luck would be a long spiritual journey. The prayer wasn't just a tool to restore her fortune. It was a way for Ngozi to strengthen her connection with herself, to see the beauty within her, and to reclaim what had been taken from her. Ngozi, filled with a quiet fury and newfound strength, finally confronted Chinonso. She found her in the village square, wearing her dress, the very dress that had been given to her by Obinna.
Chinonso,
Ngozi said, her voice steady.
I know what you've done. I know you took my luck, my life, and wore it as your own, and I want it back.
Chinonso froze, a look of guilt crossing her face. The act of wearing the dress, of taking Ngozi's fortune, had been done in secret. But now, standing face to face with the woman she had betrayed, the truth was undeniable.
I didn't know how else to get what I wanted,
Chinonso admitted, her voice shaking.
I was just jealous, Ngozi. I wanted your life, your love, your fortune. I thought it would make me whole.
Ngozi looked at her, pain and sorrow in her eyes.
You took more than that, Chinonso. You took my trust, my love. You betrayed me, and you've taken something that was never meant to be yours.
With those words, Ngozi could feel the weight of the stolen lock lifting from her chest. The prayer and the blessing from the man of God had worked. She could feel her own energy returning to her. The light that had been dimmed gradually coming back to her. The glory that Chinonso had taken could not be cursed forever, and now it was being restored to Ngozi. Chinonso stood there trembling with shame. The life she had tried to steal felt empty, and now all the power, all the admiration slipped from her grasp. Ngozi had reclaimed what was hers, and Chinonso was left with nothing but the hollow ache of her own conscience.
You will never be whole again until you make this right,
Ngozi said softly, turning away. As Ngozi walked away, Chinonso stood there in the village square, the weight of her betrayal crushing her. She had destroyed the best friendship she had ever known, and in the end, it had cost her everything. The moral of the story is that we should be careful of the people we call friends. We should be prayerful and discerning, and also not allowing envy and jealousy to becloud our sense of reasoning. Everyone has a place in life and in destiny. Please consider subscribing to our channel if you are yet to do that. Like and share this video, and until we meet on our next story. Bye.